One thing Cake creates when it's got delete actions in its views is something called a post link. Now, a post link has a form embedded in the page with a randomized name, and then the link itself has some JavaScript code which prompts you whether you do want to delete or don't, and then submits that embedded form if you say yes, and otherwise returns false and doesn't do it if you say no. So giving you an example of what the typical Cake confirmation dialog boxes look like, it's this. So just a JavaScript confirm prompt, and it's okay, but it has this host part, and you might want to change the styling or just display it a little bit differently. So we're going to look at that. So just looking at where we're heading, in my index view here for this articles view, I've got a delete action here, and it has a little bit of changes to the code so that we can pop up a Bootstrap modal, and then we can either click cancel or click OK to do the delete. Now, there is another style of link that has a confirmation, and it's just a link. So instead of doing a post, which the delete button will do, it's just a link like such, and it does a GET request. So if I click on that and then go OK, it talks to the server with the GET request, but you're still doing the confirmation. So we're going to look at replacing both of these with a Bootstrap 5 modal. Now, to get started, I'm just going to go into and get started here. And what I've got so far is just a migration to create our articles table, and then a seed which will give us some fake data to work with. And this seed is just randomizing the number of words and paragraphs for the title, and making the title into title case as well. So to run that in Cake migrations, I might have already run it, so we'll just have a look at status here. So it's already been run, but if I want to roll back that migration, so have a look at this migration here, when it's a create statement, the migration automatically knows to drop the table. So I can do that, and then just go forward again and migrate the table and recreate the table. The next step is applying our seed, and the seed is just saying migration seed to run all of them if there's a lot in the directory, or to select, you would just give it the seed and give it the name of the full name of the seed. Alright, so we also have done an installation of the Friends of Cake Bootstrap UI plugin, which gives us all the Cake niceties plus all the Bootstrap niceties, and that's just followed the bouncing ball here. Installed the Bootstrap UI plugin, enabled the Bootstrap plugin in SRC application just by running this command. Instead of running Bootstrap install, I've run Bootstrap install latest, so that's bringing in Bootstrap 5.2, and then just done the other steps, which is modifying the view to use the plugin, and then of course copying layouts so that we can modify them if we need to. And finally, if we keep scrolling down, the special sauce is baking our templates with the actual templated templates from Bootstrap UI, which then makes everything look very bootstrappy. So we've just done this, and obviously just running it again, just say all. So once that's done, we just need to make sure that our server is running. So you don't need to run a full environment when developing, so just run the cake server there. I'm just going to delete that old instance, so turn that one off and run this one. And now if we go into our articles index here in this environment, we should just have the old style pop-up dialogues, which we do. So now let's get started with transforming these into Bootstrap modals. Our first step is to open our index HTML, index PHP file, and that's under templates, under articles, and it's the index view here. And we're going to be modifying this particular part of our code, so the post link, and changing the settings within here. One thing I like to do with confirmation messages is change that to be a bit more human friendly. So if I go back to my post link now and reload, just click on that, and it now says, are you sure you want to delete the title name instead of the ID? And maybe put quotes around that to make it a bit more obvious. Alright, so we're going to embed a modal in this page. So we go to the Bootstrap documentation and scroll down until we see a modal, and then copy the sample code and put that into our document. This modal will need to be referred to programmatically, so give it an ID of Bootstrap modal, and we'll call it, instead of calling it that, we'll say confirm, and then we'll take out this default text that's here, and now we're wanting to replace this with our confirmation message. So give that an ID so that we can refer to it. Then we're looking at we don't want close, we want cancel. And we don't want save changes, we want it to be an OK. Now this this button will also want to be referred to programmatically, so we can respond to a click event on OK. And that's all we need for the time being to just get our modal ready. Our next thing we need to do is looking at the documentation. If we have a look at the live demo here, we can see that if it's a button or a link, that it needs to have these special attributes so that it knows to display a modal and the ID of that particular modal. So we're just copying that from the documentation there. We're going to go into our code here and paste this in, and then just make this compatible with cake array notation here. So, and we remember that in this particular case we gave the modal a name of Bootstrap modal, so we change that as well, and now we have our modal ready to go. Now with this, once we do reload and we hit delete, we're still getting our confirmation dialog box, and then we're getting our Bootstrap modal. So we need to change that so that that no longer happens. Now with this particular post link, the way we can override, and we have a look at that again in the code on the page here, notice that we've got this JavaScript, so we need to override this JavaScript to stop it prompting us with a confirm dialog. So to do that, we use a form helper method called setTemplates, and within this setTemplates method we say the confirmed JavaScript is no longer going to be the stuff that we've had there at the moment. We're going to just have a look at some of the things that are available just in a log statement, and we've got those two things there, and close the, and then I'm going to return false. Now once we have that coded there, let's see what we're seeing now. So just reload the page and click delete. Now we see the confirmation dialog box. OK has nothing attached yet, but cancel works fine. Now we can see there that we're getting the confirmation dialog there. Our message, the message that we normally get, and we've also got the name of the form that we'd like to post if once we go OK. So we can see the form is there, but we've now gotten hold of that within our custom confirm JS here. So what needs to happen for us to get this form name available to still post our form and do those sorts of things? Well, we can create some code here so that when the modal displays, it will also have attached to it the form name, so that we don't need to be really worried about how we're going to submit the form. If we attach the form name to the modal, it will then be available for our OK button. So let's do that. Going into our web root, we're going to add some JavaScript for our JavaScript file here, and just so that we know that it's working, we can put an alert in. Now what we're going to do is add a reference to that JavaScript file by using our HTML helper script method, and then we want to say block equals true. So just put it into the default block. So reloading our page, we can see that yes, it's in the right spot. So looking at that in our code, if we just keep scrolling right down to the bottom here, we can see that by default the Bootstrap UI plugin puts the Bootstrap Popper script and all the Bootstrap JavaScript into the bottom of the page here, and because it's the default block which is named scripts, it just puts this one after it, and that's where we want it. We want our particular custom JavaScript code to go after the Bootstrap code here. Alright, so we have Bootstrap modal code available now, so we can now start to continue with what we were doing here. So this add to modal function is going to just associate, so we go add to, I might use the word function keyword so that and it's going to have the form name passed to it, so that when it launches we're going to attach a data element to the modal. So let's get a reference to our modal. So document.get element by ID, and we remember the ID of our modal was bootstrap modal. And once we have that, all we need to say is modal dataset form name equals the form name that we're passing to it from our index page JavaScript here. So let's look at that where it stands at the moment by reloading and then hitting our delete button and then inspecting our code as well. So if we look at here, we can see that this modem now has attached a form name here, so we can use that when we click the OK button to post our form. So now let's go and do that. We'd like to do something when we click OK, so we go, let's get a reference to the OK button equals document get element by ID. We're going grab the OK button, and then on our OK button we want to add an event listener for the click event, and we're going to, when we go to get the click event, we want again get our modal, and this time we want to get our form name, and to access our data elements we can just use this and form name. Now when we look at the code, we'll see, and we saw that the form name was like this, but the way you reference it when you're looking at this dataset object here is you reference it like this, so camel case. So this becomes form name like that, without the data and without the dashes. Okay, so then we've got our form name there. Let's just have a look to make sure I've got that correct, and click on OK. Yes, it's good. And now once we've got our form name, we want to be able to submit our form. So let's look for a valid form name. So it's got to be truthy, so it's got to be a string. And then what we're going to look for is document, and then we're looking for form name, and then we're going to call submit method on that form on the page. So that looks good. So if we go reload and go OK, we'll get, this is very typical. Let's try that again. And we'll see that the article has been deleted. Alright, now let's explicitly close our form. So to our dialog, sorry, our modal. So to do that we need to get a reference to not just the element but to the bootstrap modal. So to do that we go bootstrap modal get instance, and then we pass in the element that is the modal, and then we can say okay, explicitly call the hide method. Now this is getting close to being right. So let's have a look at that again as we go delete, we go OK, it hides the modal and then it performs the delete, and that's good. But what we're missing is the confirmation text. So now let's fill out that confirmation text. Now if we have a look in our documentation, if we scroll down, when the modal shows itself, we have the ability to just run some code to set values on the modal if we want to. So just copying this default code here and putting it into our JavaScript file. First thing we might do is just change our example modal to be bootstrap modal and replace all those references there. So we're getting a reference to our modal, and we're now saying that when that show event fires, we want to get a reference to the button or the link, and I'll change that to link, so it's, because that's what we're looking at, links. Then we want to, from that link, we want to grab the confirmation message. So to get that confirm message, we can say, okay, the link, and it's the data set, it's already attached to that link, so we just want to say grab the confirm message and add that. Now what we want to do is get a reference. We can remove all this stuff because it's not really used. But now we want to get a reference to the, and we'll just change that to the message that we're going to put in, and now we just want to get a reference to that paragraph that we've got in there. So it's document.get element by ID, and it will be the confirm message. And once we have that, we can say to ourselves, okay, just change that to be that content. So when we show the modal, change the content of the confirm message in out here. So we're looking in this part here, we're going to put our message into there. So reload again and just click delete, and it says, are you sure you want to delete? Right, so that works quite well. And what now do we need to do further? Well, let's just try that. So we go OK. So there's no real problem there. It just seems to be working quite well. Now let's look at not a post link, but just a link with a confirm on it, and see a big problem that we've put in because of we're going to use them together. But let's create another, not a post link this time, just a confirm link. So we're going up to our actions sidebar. We're going to copy and paste, and I'm going to call this confirm link, and we're going to just tell it that we want to do, when we confirm it, we just want to do a get request back to our index, which is exactly the same page that this link is on. So we go confirm, and we go, do you want to go to this page again? And to make it obvious that it's something different each time, we can just use that. So let's have a look at that. So we've got a confirm link here, and it's got the default prompt, and this time we want to make this same thing work with the code that we're using at the moment, so to pop up our dialog box here as well. So you can see when we click the link that every time we do, it's going back to doing the round trip back to the same page, doing a GET request there. Alright, so again, how do we make this work? So first thing we can do is, this time we're not going to use the form method of set templates, we're going to use the HTML method for set templates. But it's the same thing, we just say, okay, I want to override the current JavaScript. Now in this case, all we're going to do is return false, because we don't need to pass a form name through, we don't need to do that sort of stuff. So, and we can just leave it like that. Then remember how we got our modal displaying. It was like this. So we can now choose to add these particular attributes to our link. And now let's have a look at it. And we can see now it's passing our confirmation message through, and this time we're saying OK and nothing's happening. Now the reason for that is that there's actually no action for this now, because there's no form name being passed through, so it doesn't know what to do. So we're going to make a change to our OK button click, and now we're going to get hold of a different thing. I think what we need to do is, when we load our modal, we want to add another attribute to our modal. So we'll add a, so we get our, so firstly we need our modal here. Let's get hold of that. So we'll grab hold of our modal, and what we need to do when the modal is being shown, we want to grab the link. Sorry, we want the Bootstrap modal here. We want to say, let's add something to the data set, and this time it's the href from the link. So visualizing what's happening there, we just reload and have a look at our code. Our link has this href here, and what we want to do is, when this confirmation dialog box loads, we're just going to attach it to our confirm modal here. So it's now embedded, and so when we go OK, we now need to do something a little bit different with the OK method. And here we're going to say, okay, let's take now the href from the modal data set, and it's called href, and if we've got a form name, let's just submit the form. Otherwise, if we've got a href, just do a relocation to this href. Now, does that work? Let's have a look. So we go OK, and looking at on the top of our address bar here, let's just notice that it's now doing the, if we have a look at our network tab, it's navigating with a GET request every time So we can see that going to a new link with a GET request there. Okay, so I've actually introduced a fatal bug here. Let's have a look at this. Go delete and then cancel, and then go confirm link and go OK. And that's definitely not what we want to do. So we're now going to use a different method. So one of our events that we can use with a Bootstrap modal, and we're just going to apply a method to completely clean up the Bootstrap modal. So we've got the show method here, but now we want to add another one called Bootstrap modal add event listener, and here we're going to go, we maybe copy the right things, there we go, and in this event all we're going to do is grab hold of our Bootstrap modal. Now I'm not fully sure if I'm doing the right thing this way, so if anyone knows better, let me know please. But Bootstrap modal dataset, and we've got two pieces of information that we certainly don't want to persist between shows. So we've got form name, so we want to clear both of these, so we're just going to delete them. So whenever we hide the modal and then we reopen it, this event will fire and we'll have a fresh modal attribute. So let's have a look at that, whether we've fixed that pretty severe bug. So let's have a look at the confirm link. Look up the top, it's yes, it's done the navigation and it's different. Now we have a look at our delete link, press cancel and try the navigation again, and it's not deleting our last clicked on article, but now we've got it all working so that it doesn't create problems like this. Now obviously there's a lot of different ways to do this, and you could probably see a better way as you look at the way I've attempted to implement it here, but this is just the basics of getting modals running instead of having JavaScript confirm dialogues in Cake PHP 4 and Bootstrap 5. So I hope that's been helpful to someone.